We bring it all to you here on West Bremer Radio with the ark man. He's everywhere. He's like a dirty big magpie hanging around the place with a crow going ark. Here's Harold the Peacock, and he's going to talk about, it's a century ago, Ipswich's great one-armed robbery where the hero only had one arm.
Yes.
Harold, tell us this story. Can you build it up? Because we've been waiting for 3 hours and bated breath. And Carmel Cuskelly in Toowoomba, she is keen to hear this yarn.
Yeah, well, everyone wants to know one-armed bandits, but that's not quite the story. No. You see, there was a sensational hold-up by a man wearing a leather mask, and that happened about 11 a.m. on Saturday, the 15th of November, 1924. Now, this was at the office of F. Barbett and Son Foundry on Lowry Street in North Ipswich. Now, he was partly masked and pointed a revolver at an office clerk, Samuel Busey, and a typist, Miss Anne McDowell. They were the only ones in the office at the time.
Right.
Now, a bag containing over £600 to pay the employees had just been taken to a small room out the back.
Right.
That's when a gruff voice from the doorway demanded that he wanted some of it. Now, both Busey and Miss McDowell turned around to see a masked man covering them with a loaded revolver. Now, Busey, realising the seriousness of the situation, he handed the intruder £2.
Right.
But the man, that wasn't enough. He said he wanted more than that. He wanted the lot. Now, noticing the hand of the robber was shaking significantly, Busey said that he would not hand it over and that the bandit had to come and get it. Now, again, Busey was menaced with the revolver and the demand repeated. So this time he handed over £20. Now, just let me divert a little bit because Busey had quite a backstory. You see, a few years earlier, his brother suffered 3 deaths in 18 days when 2 in-laws died and then his wife died in childbirth. Busey himself, he lived with his parents at Ipswich in Burnett Street.
Right.
Now, he'd worked at Barbett's Foundry since leaving school.
Right.
He was 17 years old when his right arm got caught in a tapping machine and was completely torn off.
I can feel.
Yeah, but look, he would go on to actually become a very promising golfer. Now, not long after the Foundry robbery, the one-armed Busey would be travelling home near Oxley when a horse jumped in through his car window, crushed his head, and killed him. But anyway, back to the robbery. When Busey handed over the £20, the bandit was apparently satisfied with this amount. That's because he left the remainder of the £600 behind, backed out of the office while still covering the 2 clerks with a revolver, slammed the door and made a rapid escape. Now, the Ipswich police were promptly notified, and that night detectives arrested a man at his home in Gustafson Street in Annerley, or back then it was South Brisbane. They found a loaded revolver and practically the identical money that was stolen. Busey and Miss McDowell identified the man as an employee from the Foundry who earlier that week had actually asked the office to have his money in the office there at 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. And that's pretty much when the bandit turned up wearing a leather mask.
Right.
Now, the bandit's name was George William Nicholson. He was found guilty in the Supreme Court and sentenced to 4 years imprisonment. That was despite the jury recommending leniency. And it's that recommendation where the story gets really interesting. You see, Nicholson was a returned soldier from the First World War.
Right.
He first enlisted in 1915 as a 19-year-old, served with the Australian 9th Battalion in Egypt, but was invalid at home with rheumatic fever. He enlisted again as a 20-year-old, this time making it to the Western Front with the 42nd Battalion. It was in 1918 that Nicholson was gassed and shot in the arm shortly after the First Battle of Molencourt in France.
Right.
Now, he spent the next 12 months recuperating in hospital, not from the injuries. You see, he suffered shock and his nerves were shot. He'd lost a full stone of weight and he couldn't sleep. His mother didn't welcome him home until late 1919, which was a full year after many others got home.
Wow.
Now, Nicholson died in 1938 at the age of 41, single and still not right. And look, he's buried at Toowong Cemetery, where his grave is marked by an AIF headstone with his original service number and battalion. But look, I reckon it really should be his final number with the 42nd Battalion, because that's when his life changed. So, Danny, even though the one-armed Samuel Busey was the hero of the Great Ipswich robbery 100 years ago, maybe for once we should be remembering the bandit, the unfortunate George Nicholson.
He built it up like a crescendo, like a rock song, like, you know.
It's like a conductor.
He is, and he builds it, and there's always someone dying.
Yeah. And someone with an affliction.
Well, Ipswich has been around for 180 years. There's a fair few people died now.
Mate, great story. Where can we find that story to read it again?
Yeah, go online to historyouthere.com.
Historyouthere.com, and you can hear Harold the H. Peacock every Saturday morning about this time. What about on your radio station?
Every Tuesday morning between 7:30 and 8.
There you go. Harold the H. Peacock, 8:19.